Hello denizens of the internet, this is Kira Una coming to you today, and today we are going to be recycling and upcycling from our own wardrobe. I have several pairs of pants. This is a in the middle of being taken apart pair of pants, and we're going to try and do something with it. So come with me, we'll do a little experimentation today. I think I bought these in 2019 or something like that. I don't know is there a tag that says when it was made? It's 100% rayon. Oh, it says it was cut in 2019. I'm not going to show you the company, but I'm going to show you this tag here. So it shows when it was cut. So that essentially means kind of close to when it was made, just before the pandemic. Anyhow. What they teach in school is they have you cut everything, then they have you serge each piece individually, and then they have you do the main seam, which is this. Like, there's two seams here. I don't know how well you can see it. You can kind of see it on this flower. So they have you do the main seam with the machine with just a straight stitch, and then they have you serge everything before you do that. Here they have the opposite. Here they have you cutting everything, because you got to cut everything out before you actually sew anything. Then they have you sewing the main seam, and then at about, I'm gonna say this is maybe 3/8 if we're lucky. Let's see how it measures up to, yeah, it's about 1/4. So they may have cut it at the 1/2 inch because that is the industry standard supposedly. So they have everything cut, everything sewn at the 1/2 inch, and then they go in with the serger and serge over both sides instead of doing that first and leaving a larger seam allowance. So not only does it make it harder to adjust for a clothing that you may already have to utilize that seam allowance, but it's also a real pain in the butt to try and undo all of the serging that's on the raw edge instead of just undoing one seam. So I have to undo the entire serged edge, and I have to undo the main sewing seam. So I'm gonna be here a while trying to unpick all of these, so.
One semester later.
Okay, so other than getting sidetracked by other projects, I have my dress form that I am currently working on padding out to be a little closer to my size. I realize the bust level is a little higher than I am, which, I don't wear padded bras. These particular pants that I have taken apart along the crotch seam are made out of rayon, and I want to reuse them because they never really quite fit very well to begin with. I find that they just don't fit very well around the waist. Like, they had a really wide elastic band, and I found it was a little too much it was too much waistband for my personal preferences. This had a lot of drape in the legs, so these are a little wider than the one that I did for my wrap shirt. And I intend to use these swatches as the base for a shirt. Now, the benefit of having unpicked all this and pressing it all down, we can still use the initial drape of the fabric. As you can see, it drapes really nicely. That's one of the benefits of having a nice light rayon. This is also in a color that I happen to like, and I can probably get this to drape over the shoulders. Now, this dress form may not necessarily be perfect to my size, but I plan on adding a fair bit of ease, and I'm also going to see if I can use the crotch to expand on the shoulders so I can bring the shirt around and have it fit me. So I need to essentially drape this in a way with a little bit of extra ease. I'll probably add like maybe 1 inch of ease into the shoulders and the side seams because I want it to fit me really nicely. Now, one of the things that I probably should do is take a minute and cut off the crotch seam on both sides, because what I can do is, if I use the natural drape of the shirt and go this way, is it wide enough? Maybe? It actually might be wide enough. I can make a nice long shirt and have the crotch seam as my neckline, but it doesn't work because they're different shapes to this. So I have to figure out where the center the center is, for sure. Additionally, what I could do is I could do this on the cross grain and just have this as in the middle or an underbust situation. Instead of going widthwise with the crotch at my shoulder line, I can go with this and have that center seam hiding at my bust line, like that. I know you might not necessarily be able to see it very easily, but we're working with what we've got here. Alternatively, I could do this on the bias for both pieces. Actually, bias drape would really probably work so that the center seam of the pants go from shoulder down to the hip, and that would certainly give it some drape as well. Decisions. Why does this have to be so hard? There are a lot of different options. One thing's for sure though, I probably can't keep the crotch seam. So I'm probably gonna cut that off. If I cut it off at the shoulder, extend the shoulder a little bit, because this is certainly, yeah, this will be wide enough, I think. Maybe it'll fit around the back, or at least I think it will fit around the back. So if I just leave it hang loose like that, maybe pinch out a dart along the bust. It doesn't have to be super fancy. It can be nice and eased in. Bring that up around the shoulder. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for the sleeves just yet. I may even leave this sleeveless. Or find some more rayon in my stash. I'm fairly confident I have some. And make a collar out of it. Or I'll use the leftover bits of the crotch seam and make that a collar. But it's one of those things where you gotta kind of play with it a little bit. I've made this in a way so that I can take it off afterwards. So if I need to use the initial functions of this body form, because it's one of those really cheap ones that you can buy at like most fabric stores, ones that have multiple sizes to them. I just maxed it out and made a shell. If I take this off, I'll still be able to use the base functions of this. I'm still working on this though, and this is all covered in Phosshape, by the way. So once this is all done, I will be heat forming this to create a hard shell. But it will fit me better than the standard size because I am not a standard size. So if I just drape it nice, have it come down to about here, and then just leave that flat, because like from the back, from the crotch seam down to here, this is almost perfect. Like this is almost in line with my zipper. And these pants didn't have a lot of from the crotch seam to the inseam bowing in. So it was fairly drapey. It had a very straight shape to it. It didn't really have a lot of curves to the shape of the pants, which works to my case, my advantage. You know, let's leave the back on there. I'll pin this down just so that I have something to work with for my back. We'll see where this goes. The beauty of this being made out of Phoshape though, even once it's heated, you can probably still pin into it, which is important for draping. Now I'm gonna try and center this as best I can. Might not be able to get necessarily super perfect on the back of the neck, but I can probably lower that ever slightly. So let's start with the back first. I'll grab my scissors and cut some of that off. Okay, this is where the zipper is sitting, and this is the back center seam of where the pants were. That's pretty straight to me, and I'll use that to my advantage because the center of the pants is a little closer to what the grain line of the fabric is. Sure, it looks a little worn around here, but that's okay. I can live with that for recycling a little bit. The shoulders are not going to be perfect, but it will do the job. If I really need to, I could probably use the excess here and add gores on the side to give a little more hip space for this shirt. And again, if anybody's looking at that and going, well, why do you have a gore there? They're looking way too close at your garments, and they shouldn't be, because your clothes are meant to fit you, not you fit the clothes. You know, with this, the way it is, it almost makes a nice little cape. No, we're making a shirt, we're not making a cape. I'll cut this off just so I don't have that excess. Cut around the armhole, but it's gonna be tight. And again, we're gonna add extra length just so we have some space. And we'll save this for later. So after cutting all of this out, and if you take a look, it looks like the back of a shirt. Not too bad. I did, however, run into a little bit of a problem where one of these sides of the pants were a little longer than the other, and in order for it to be properly mirrored, I had to cut some of it off, which leaves me with a different problem where I'm not going to have enough in the seams at the hips, so I'm going to probably need to safety pin it along here once I get both front and back cut out, just to see how it's going to fit and then make some adjustments. So we'll have to see how that goes. Now we're gonna do the front next. So let's grab the other piece and put that on. Again, keeping the center to the center. May have to do something clever with the neck, because this has a bit of a pleating situation. It's going to gape a little bit because, again, both parts are not symmetrical. So that is going to leave me with a little bit of faffing around. I mean, I could possibly bring that, like, it, provided I have enough material on the sides, just bring that up and have it match the other side here. I could take the front also and pleat up the shoulder. Give me a bit of shape. Maybe. That is an option. Because when you're draping, you can do whatever you want, as long as you have enough material to work with. And in this situation, I'll probably have enough. It will probably be comfortable too, or at least I'm hoping it will be, because it's a nice fabric. It feels really nice. Is it a synthetic? Yes, but synthetics do have their use. Make sure that that is very much more centered, and I'm gonna just pin it. You know what? I'm gonna pin it a little higher, because there should be enough room at the bottom for me to work with. So I'm gonna pin it there. We'll figure out the necklines later. I just want to make sure I'm gonna have enough width to work with. Now, if I really like this shirt, when I'm done, I will probably make a pattern for it, for like really drapey fabrics, for myself. I don't make patterns for other people unless I know it's going to fit other people. And I'm just gonna, again, pin this up under the armhole with extra overlap from the other piece, just to see how that's gonna fall. Then if I make like a V neckline, or do I want a rounded one? I also have to figure out a way to get in and out of this thing. Again, leaving yourself plenty of space to work with. And again, I've got a hard plastic shell in the middle of this thing, so it's not gonna be the easiest thing to work with. And I have to remember that one of these sides is gonna be short in terms of space. If I put a contrast color, what do I have for fabric that would work with this? Because this is really drapey. The other question is, would it fit me once I take it off? That is the other question. I mean, if I make the neck hole big enough, I could probably get it on, but I don't want to tear something. But if you come across a larger-ish pair of pants, even if you don't, you can always add in if you don't have enough. So let's say you get 2 pairs of pants. They have the same material, but they have different patterns. Or one's a solid and one's a patterned. You can mix and match. There's nothing wrong with doing a mix and match. Or color blocking. You know, I have an idea. Something that might solve some of my problems. I have in my stash something called Pima cotton. And I also have some lace. I wonder if I could make a lacy strip down the side of the shirt to give it a little bit more drape, to give it some shape, and so it'll give me a little bit of extra seam allowance on the inside if I need to let it out or for adjusting. Hang on a second, I'll be right back on that. Now, where did I put that lace? I have plenty. And if I added that on the side, or if I added that as a sleeve, so if I added that on the side as my gore, that will give me enough room, I think. Or if I added this as like a little cape for my shoulders, could look cute. Yeah, no, maybe too much. One thing's for sure though, I'll probably need to make a big enough entryway for my head, because I really don't want to fuss with closures on this. So let me bundle this back up. All right, we're gonna stick with the problem at hand here. I have the shoulders pinned with enough seam allowance to work with, and I need to cut out a shape for my neckline. I don't want it coming down too far. So I'm thinking like about here. And I have more than enough bias tape to reinforce that neckline. So we'll cut that out. And again, we're going to be mirroring, so we'll only want to do one side. Cut out the armhole. Which side is longer? Okay, this side is longer, so we're going to be draping on this side because this is what the maximum amount of space that we'll have to work with. So I'll cut that out, see what we're working with once it's off the form. Just redrape that a little bit. And this isn't as straightforward. I might have to add a dart somewhere in the bust. Actually, I should probably do that before I get too far ahead of myself. Where do I want the dart to go? Just like right up into the shoulder there. So, it's not gonna quite work because I already cut it. You know what? Armpit, it is. And I'm gonna make it not very deep. So I'm going to grab some safety pins. I'm not gonna cut that dart out. And I'm gonna have it come around the side here, just underneath the underarm. And I'm gonna drop it a little bit so it has some space. So you see how I'm pinching out a little bit of fabric here? That is gonna be my dart. It's gonna be loose because this is not a super fitted shirt, or at least it won't be. Here in Canada, Toronto specifically, for those of you who are new, hi, I'm from Toronto. It went from freezing rain, sleet, snow, and everything else not 2 weeks ago, and now it's going to be about 72 degrees Fahrenheit or about 21 degrees. My math is probably wrong off the top of my head. Don't at me. Americans, please don't. The weather's a little weird right now, but that's kind of normal for April. Here in Canada, where the weather is made up and your jacket doesn't matter. Okay, so now that I have the dart pinched out, I'm going to repin this directly underneath the arm. So that's not going to go anywhere, so I can cut that out. I'm going to cut that out, trace out my dart using additional safety pins so that way I know where the pinch goes. So I'll have safety pins on top, safety pins on bottom. Open it up, cut everything else out so it matches on both sides, and then I'll bring it back over and I'll drape it, and then we'll see where we go from there. And again, I'm not leaving a lot of room for the arm's eye because I don't know what we're doing with it yet. I'm seriously tempted to make just a V and add bias tape around the neckline because I don't want anything complicated. So let's do just that. We'll worry about aligning the shoulder after. There we go. That'll hopefully give me enough room for my melon. I'm gonna take this off, bring it back over to the ironing board, fold this in half, trace around this side. Oh, and again, make sure you mark what side you're cutting from so you don't get yourself confused. And I'll bring this back over and pin this back down. Everything's cut out, and you'll see that I've got the safety pins on just the one side, like so. Now, it was kind of getting hot in here, and ideally what you want to do is you want to wear clothes that you're going to be wearing under your shirt. This is just a nice and comfy sort of, I think it's a linen cotton blend for a chemise that I made for myself for wearing for businessy-ish, more formal kind of clothing, as it helps to keep my body regulated with temperature. Because the one thing that they don't tell you when you get older is that women's bodies, they go through a lot of temperature fluctuations, and being able to stay cool is key. So we are going to put this back on the dress form, re-button up that. Oh, I left my safety pins over there. And I'm going to pin roughly where these two meet. And again, this is not super precise because it is a little bit on the drapier side. It's mainly just to see where the location of that is going to be. And it's already starting to look like a shirt with a nice V neckline. It's a little wobbly around the neckline, but you know what? A little bit of stabilizing with some bias tape will help that nicely. I don't know about you, but this is looking like a pretty nice shirt. And we're leaving a very generous seam allowance, just in case we need to make an adjustment. Because the back will be straight, the sides not so, or the front not so much. That's not too bad. I've got a lot of room in the arms, which is good. Which side was the one that I actually had my original dart on? I think it was this side. That fits pretty good. Shoulders they could be a little further back, I think. Neckline fits. At least I can get it over my head. And hip points go far enough past my actual hips to be comfortable. And then I just need to figure out how low I want it, which is probably about here. And I'll probably scoop out the front so that it's a little higher on the hip and a little lower towards the bottom. A little bit, not too much. How far down do I want it in the back? Not too low. I don't know, about there? Come on, pin. There we go. Haha. And I'm kind of thinking where this ends is not too bad, so I need to undo at least one safety pin on this side. Sleeve length isn't bad, like the shoulder length. And I have my chemise a little bit peekaboo, but you know what? I can live with that. Because I mean, it's not uncommon for people to have like a little something underneath. It's a little decorative. This lace is a bit scratchy. I was just thinking I could do a facing. I mean, I could still do an overlay on the inside of the shirt, but then again, I might have a little hard time getting my head in and out of it. So, but I also want to be able to wear it without a chemise. So this will be certainly light and drapey, give me enough room. I can wear a tank top under it, because a lot of the tank tops that I have are a little bit lower cut. This feels comfortable. Not gonna lie, I might actually like this, because I've had a couple of failed experiments in the past, or ones that don't quite fit as well as I'd like to. Shoulders feel good. I'm not gonna hulk out of it if I scrunch myself up, because I tend to shrimp in my chair. What do you think? I think it's pretty good. I hope you can hear me. I realized I was burying the mic. Let me fiddle with this dart situation a little bit more, just so then that way I can mark it out better. I'm going to translate pretty much everything that I mentioned, so I'm going to take the shoulders back a little bit, refine the cutouts a little bit, make my seam allowances an actual inch, and then I think we might actually be ready to sew this. Still have to find bias tape that'll work for the neckline, but maybe I have lace, like, not this lace, maybe like a cotton lace, or just something that I can maybe make a facing with, because I've got probably enough scraps to make a facing for this, and I want to add in a bit of length here, so I might see if I have something, just a little accent. We'll take a look and see what I've got. I decided I was going to move the bust dart from under the arm to just in the side of the arm, so it'll probably come in about here. And I also adjusted this shoulder seam to sit back just a scotch, and I cleaned up the armhole, and I've trimmed about an inch down from that initial line so I can hem it later. So I'll do probably like a half an inch roll, and that'll give me what I need. So I'm gonna take this off of the form, and I'm gonna put this on me again, just to see how it looks on an actual person rather than a bust form. I left the little bits dangling because, again, we're going to duplicate what we've done on each side. And because my left is bigger than my right, that is why we're draping on my left side. And I just heard a pin drop somewhere. Uh-oh. I'll have to sweep around with a magnet to find that one. I heard it hit the floor. Oh, there it is. Haha. Found it. Not too bad. Not too much gaping under the arm, from what I can tell. There's gonna be a little bit, but that's not like I can probably take it in just a little bit more. You know, I might do that. This is why you try stuff on yourself before you go with the final draft. Because making the armhole tighter will not only make everything else tighter, but I want to make sure I fit. And this is why we're using safety pins. And I'm also using the safety pins as sort of my quasi seam allowance, just to make sure that things are aligned. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of a rumple from the original seam there, but it helps to make sure that I've got the shape right. And then I can just follow that along when I go to cut it all out. Clean up the arms a little bit. Do a bit of serging to make sure that the edges don't come undone. I don't have green, but I do have black, and I don't think black will show up on this. See, that's closed up a little bit more, so there's no gaping underneath. Even if I wasn't wearing anything underneath, this fits pretty comfortable. So I'm going to turn around for a second. And you see how I've got a little bit of a gape here. So I can take my safety pin and just pinch a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit. Don't pin yourself. And I don't want the neckline being changed all that much, because I don't want to cause too much gaping in the front. I didn't make as many adjustments on the front on that side, but on this side it seems to fit pretty nice. I think we're getting really close to just taking this to the sewing machine. Well, I'm gonna take this to my ironing table, draft out where my seam line is going to go, but this fits pretty good. I can get it on and off, which is a bonus. And I think what I'll do is I'll serge all the edges after I sew it up, just so I can see how it fits. I think I'm gonna forgo the sleeves. That was an idea. I still have to figure out what I'm doing about the collar, because I want to avoid removing as much of the edging here, so it's gonna be like a 1/4 inch that I'm turning it under at most. So like just the edge of like a serged edge. Or do I just want to bias bind it and go with it? I might do that too. That would be easier. And it would give me more structure. And then if I wanted to hide this, I don't know if I can get this on and off without that there. I don't know, maybe I'll put a pin or a tack or something so I can drape something over top here. That's actually not a bad idea. Just a pinned piece that's like tacked here, and tacked here. To make it look like it's an undershirt, but it's part of the whole outfit. Time to sit down for like maybe an hour, just wearing this to see how it feels. Alright, so I'm gonna use the Singer Prelude, one that you've probably seen me take apart already. If not, you might want to go check out that video. It's kind of cool to see the insides of a sewing machine. It's important that you mark out all your seams so that you know where you're sewing on both sides of the piece, because I forgot to do that on this specific one. That's a second. And sure, this is great audio. And we're on a ruler. Oh. Yeah. Just for the shoulder seams. And so I'm gonna sew the side seams to a point. I have made some marks on the front half, which is sitting on the chair behind me. And I'm gonna stop at where the waist starts bending to see if I need to add the gores that I cut out earlier to give myself a little bit of extra wiggle room. And I gave myself a decent amount of length and seam allowance because this goes from like the armpit down to the bottom hem. So, and I gave myself about half an inch just for this one. And we'll see if I feel like I need to add it. I don't think I will, but I would like to have a little bit of extra comfort. So I might. We'll see. I have all of this set up. Now this machine doesn't have a reverse button, so I'm going to have to use some trickery in order to get it to cooperate the way I need it to. And this is the center back, so we're adding that little dart in. I'm going to start on the original seam, go up and sew to there, and stop at the net line. While I'm sewing this up, I'm going to keep recording. But if you want to, you can go ahead, grab a drink, grab a snack or something, chill out, relax, and I will come back to you. And before doing the shoulder seams on the front, we're going to sew up those darts. And we're going to use as many pins as we feel necessary. Now, one of the tricks with the any machine that you don't have a reverse button on, if you really want to, you can keep the needle in the machine, pick up the presser foot, turn your work around, set your presser foot back down, and just go backwards. Just like that. And you'll find that it's something that you might have to do on some vintage machines, because not all of them have a reverse button. My Singer 99K doesn't. That dart is done. I will press it at some point before I get too far into it. Where's that other dart? I'm almost certain that I made this dress form bigger than myself, because I'm noticing a couple of idiosyncrasies. I know it's all right. It thanks, garbage collection people. Sorry if the audio is garbage. As I was saying, I'm pretty sure that this is a little bit bigger than I am, because there seems to be a lot more of a wider split in the hips. Trying to YouTube here. Stop. Right, now that the garbage people have left and are no longer making a whole load of racket, I will go back into what I was saying. I think this dress form, I made it and padded it out a little wider than what I actually am. Because, this seems to be a lot more wide in the spread, but it's possible that I also have a little bit more belly than this thing does, more so than the hips. So it's not exact, but it'll do the job I need it to. I need to pin this in. So I'm gonna grab some safety pins again, like that. On the inside, of course. So I can copy it, replicate it, and then copy it on the other side, and then do both sides up. We're gonna try and pin it right sides together here. And we're gonna do about the half-inch-ish line. We're gonna drop it ever slightly, just to give ourselves a little bit of allowance. And I'm gonna try and follow the seam line on the inside, and I'm gonna do that on the other side as well. And I'm gonna use pretty much the full width of the gore, but we're not gonna be using the full height, because it's gonna be a lot wider at the bottom. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this off, flip it right side out, or wrong side out, and pin that the rest of the way, because I need to be able to see my seam lines. I'm not going to make myself and my hair look super pretty in between each shot, because life is messy, and I think the internet and the world around us could use a solid dose of reality, because, you know, things get busy. You're not always going to have time to fix your hair before you do a sewing project. What is this, the 1950s? Don't answer that. I'll see if I can find that Singer sewing machine home sewing rules guide of you have to make sure you do all the housework and make sure that you're dressed up and do up your hair and put on some makeup before you start sewing, because God forbid you do any sewing without makeup. I very rarely ever wear makeup because I'm predominantly sensitive to it. I find that it just gums up my sinuses like nobody's business. And then I can't breathe for 2 days after I'm done doing a shoot with makeup. I don't think it's the ingredients. I think it's just the fact that it's a fine powder that causes me so much problems. Because I have year-round post-nasal drip problems and unknown sensitivities as per my allergy doctor, which I have seen. I've seen ear, throat, nose doctor. I've had the camera shoved up my nose twice. It's not comfortable. But you know what? That's just life. I'm not the same shape, size, and or beauty standards as other YouTubers, and I shouldn't have to be in order to be informative. So you get to deal with my messy hair and my slightly wrinkly shirts and things so I can get the job done. This particular pair of pants came with a belt. I'm going to see if I can find it, because that will be plenty to go around the neck. I mean, if I need to, I can just roll the hem under on the arms by I don't know, half an inch, quarter inch. Do a rolled hem. Doesn't have to be fancy, just has to be functional. If there's enough, I might do both, if I can find that belt. So I will come back when I have everything traced out, and when or if I figure out what I'm doing with the neck and the arms. I have everything sewn up. I have pressed everything. I did a little bit of reinforcement here at the corner of the joint. I realize it's not as pretty as I would have liked it, but it is functional. And seriously, if anybody's really looking that close at the detail, again, they're probably looking way too close. I do need to trim some of this off. I've noticed that the shoulder doesn't entirely line up, so I have to trim it a little bit. And I'm going to trim it to just past where this dart sits, so that on the inside of the just leaning into the armpit, it'll smooth out and round out the shoulder. And of course, clip away any of this sort of excess overage here. And I'll do the same thing on the other side so that that matches as well. Now, after digging in my stash a bit, I've got some black lace that I think it's mostly black. It's like an extremely dark gray. I'm calling it black just because it's dark enough to be black. And I'm going to add that as the trim, so then that way I can tuck this underneath and add a little bit of extension into the neck a little bit. So then this way, at the end of the day, this is going to look like that once it's done. And this is a fairly soft lace, so it won't annoy my neck that much. And then I'm going to end the bottom, and then the shirt will be done. And here we have is where I'm going to be putting lace. I'm going to be avoiding directly under the arm. Hang on a second. Move that around. I'm going to be avoiding directly under the arm just so it doesn't chafe. I'm also going to be avoiding directly behind the neck. So all of this is going to be turned under and then top stitched down. So then that way all of this lace sits nice and pretty and flush. So yes, there's a couple of spots where my bra is going to be peeking out. I am wearing a slightly different bra. With the other bras that I normally wear that I've made for myself, they tend to poke out in the back of the shoulder. So that just means that in the future, if I wanted to replicate this particular shirt, I would just have to make that a little bit wider across the back of the shoulder. It is not necessarily a flaw with the design, it's just an adjustment. And as you can see, it's on my body and it fits pretty good. It's actually quite comfortable. So I am looking forward to wearing this all summer when it comes up. I don't care if my bra strap shows a little bit. Most of what I'm going to be wearing this to is school anyway, so nobody's really going to care. Now, with that said, if I was to make this a little bit more professional, I would widen the back of the shoulder a little bit to match me, and wear my other bra with this particular shirt. For this bra, it does okay. I mean, it's hiding a little bit, but it's like one of those sports bras that tucks up a little closer to the neckline, so that again, I may have to make a bra series that fits this particular style of shirt, just to hide the band a little bit. I am a fairly busty person, so I need a wider band in the bra. So that is a me problem. You may have a slightly different experience if you're wearing a normal bra. So I hope that you enjoyed this little sewing, recycling, upcycling adventure. If you happen to like what you see, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really boosts the algorithm. Also, if you do feel that you would like to help this channel out monetarily, I do have a Ko-Fi page, and I have a bunch of free patterns. I'm constantly adding to the free stuff repertoire, and it would really help me out if you placed a donation. I recently released my book, or at least the first volume. I'm gonna call it an e-zine, a magazine, a little informational booklet that you can print out online from my Ko-Fi page, and I'll put the QR code and the links both on here on screen and in the description box below. So until next time, I'll see you all later. Bye!